The great chamber of station had never been so quiet. Over 300 delegates from 12 different species sat in their seats, and none of them spoke. The massive screens above showed the same image that had haunted them for 7 days. A tear in space itself, purple and black, spinning slowly like a wound that would not heal. High Arbiter stood at the center platform. His gray skin looked pale under the lights, and his 4 eyes blinked one after another as he read from his data pad. He was tall, even for his kind, and he had led the Galactic Conclave for 40 years. In all that time, he had never faced something like this. "The spatial rift continues to grow," he said. His voice was heavy. "Our best calculations show that within 30 cycles, it will consume this station. Within 60 cycles, it will destabilize the jump gates connecting 47 inhabited systems. Billions of lives are at risk." A low sound moved through the chamber. It was not quite a gasp, not quite a moan. It was the sound of hope dying. Commander of the stood from his seat. His people were known as the greatest engineers in the galaxy. They had built stations that orbited black holes. They had created ships that could cross the galaxy in weeks. If anyone could fix this problem, it should be them. "We have studied the rift for 6 days, said. His voice was sharp and clear. "Our conclusion is final. There is no technology in existence that can close it. The energy required would need to be perfectly coordinated across 17 different vectors simultaneously. Even our best systems cannot achieve this precision." Scholar of the raised one of her thin arms. Her people were scientists, devoted to knowledge above all else. "We confirm the findings," she said. "The mathematics are clear. The rift cannot be closed by any known means." Closed his eyes for a moment. "Then we must discuss evacuation. The station holds 2 million beings. We have transport capacity for perhaps 800,000. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages. Some demanded priority for their own species. Others called for calm. 3 delegations simply stood and walked out, their faces showing they had already given up. In the far corner of the chamber, in seats that were almost hidden behind a support pillar, sat the human delegation. There were only 5 of them. Humanity had joined the conclave just 2 years ago, and they were still considered newcomers. Children, really, compared to species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Danny Cole sat in the front of the small human group. He was not a tall man, and his brown hair was slightly messy. He wore a simple gray uniform with no medals or decorations. He had been listening carefully to every word, and now he leaned forward to whisper to his team. Marsh sat beside him. She was the pilot, quick and sharp, with short black hair and steady hands. Behind them sat Sam Briggs, their medical officer, a calm man with glasses and a gentle voice. Hank Porter was there too, big and solid, the kind of man who could fix anything with enough time and the right tools. And finally there was Amy Torres, small and friendly, who had a gift for talking to anyone and making them feel heard. Danny whispered to them for a long moment, raised an eyebrow. Sam nodded slowly. Hank shrugged and smiled. Amy gave a thumbs up. Then Danny Cole stood. At first, no one noticed. A human standing in this chamber was like a mouse standing in a room full of elephants. But Danny raised his hand and waited. He did not shout. He did not demand attention. He simply stood with his hand raised until, one by one, the delegates fell silent and turned to look. Stared at the human with obvious confusion. "You wish to speak, the observer delegation from Earth." "Yes, High Arbiter," Danny said. His voice was calm and steady. "We would like to help." The silence lasted for 3 full seconds. Then Commander laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Help," the commander said. Your species has been in space for less than 100 years. You still use chemical rockets for some of your ships. You have no understanding of spatial mechanics beyond the most basic level." Danny did not react to the insult. He simply nodded. "That may be true, but we would still like to try." Scholar leaned forward with what might have been curiosity. You heard our assessment. The task is mathematically impossible. The cannot do it. We cannot do it. What makes you believe humans can? Danny thought for a moment before answering. We do not believe we can, he said honestly. We just believe the problem deserves an attempt. More laughter came from around the chamber, shook his head in what looked like pity. This is not a game, human. This is not one of your primitive competitions. People will die. Systems will fall. And you want to try because the problem deserves an attempt. Yes, Danny said simply. Held up a hand to silence the chamber. He studied the human for a long moment. You understand that we cannot spare resources for a doomed effort. You would receive no support, no equipment, no assistance. We understand. And you still wish to proceed. Danny looked back at his small team, gave him a firm nod. We do. Sighed, it was the sigh of someone humoring a child. Very well, you may use Cargo Bay 7. It has been scheduled for cleaning, so there are scraps there from various species. Do what you wish with them. You have 30 cycles. Thank you, High Arbiter, Danny said. He sat back down. The chamber returned to arguing about evacuation plans. No one paid attention to the humans anymore. They were already forgotten. But leaned over to Danny with a small smile. 30 days to save a station and 47 star systems with whatever garbage we find in a cargo bay. No pressure. Danny smiled back. We have done more with less. And that was true. They had. Cargo Bay 7 was a mess. Old panels from ships lay stacked against one wall. Broken sensor equipment from the filled several crates. Power cables of different sizes and colors hung from hooks like strange vines. The room smelled of oil and dust and forgotten things. Danny stood in the middle of it all and smiled. This is perfect, he said. Hank walked past him, already pulling at a stack of metal sheets. I see at least 3 different power systems here. Give me a day and I can probably make them talk to each other. They were not designed to work together, said. She was studying a data pad looking at the rift readings. Different species, different technology, different everything. So, Hank said, he picked up 2 cables with completely different connectors. Electricity is electricity. Data is data. The universe does not care what shape the plug is. Sam had found a quiet corner and was setting up his medical equipment, but he was not looking at medical things. He was looking at the radiation patterns from the rift, watching them dance across his screen. There is something strange here, he said softly. The rift pulses, like a heartbeat. Amy was already on her communication device, talking to someone in a language Danny did not recognize. She had a gift for languages. In the 2 years since humanity joined the Conclave, she had learned to speak 7 alien tongues well enough to have real conversations. She finished her call and looked up with a bright smile. The delegation says they have some spare energy cells they are not using, and the ambassador owes me a favor from that card game last month. He says we can have their old navigation computer. How do you know all these people? Asked. Amy shrugged. I talk to them. I remember their names. I ask about their families. It is not hard. Most beings just want someone to listen. Danny watched his team work. They had been together for 3 years now. First contact missions, diplomatic visits, emergency responses. They were not the strongest or the most advanced, but they trusted each other completely, and that was worth more than any technology. The hours passed, then the days. Danny worked without sleep, drawing plans on any surface he could find. Flew simulation after simulation, testing flight paths through the rift's gravity field. Sam studied his readings until his eyes hurt, looking for patterns that others had missed. Hank built and rebuilt, combining pieces that should not fit together until somehow they did. Amy kept finding resources, trading favors, making friends. On the 5th day, Scholar came to visit. She stood in the doorway of the cargo bay, her tall, thin body almost filling the frame. Her large eyes moved slowly across the chaos inside. Wires everywhere. screens showing data and human symbols, the smell of coffee, which humans seem to need constantly. "This is remarkable," she said, though her tone suggested she meant something closer to ridiculous. Danny looked up from his work. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but he smiled warmly. "Scholar, please come in. Watch your step, the floor is a bit cluttered." Picked her way carefully through the mess. She stopped beside Sam, who was staring at a screen full of numbers. "What are you looking at?" "The rift's radiation patterns," Sam said. "Your people filtered out the biological noise when you studied it, the organic frequencies, but I left them in." "Why would you do that? They are irrelevant to the physics." Sam pointed at a repeating wave on his screen. "Maybe, but look at this pattern. It repeats every 47 seconds, and this one every 112 seconds. They interact here and here and here." Leaned closer. Her scientific curiosity was stronger than her doubt. "That is strange, almost like a rhythm." "Like a heartbeat," Sam agreed. "If we time our energy pulse to match the rhythm, we might be able to work with the rift instead of against it." Was silent for a long moment. "That is creative thinking. My people would never have considered it. We focus on physics, not biology." "Humans are biology," Sam said simply. "It is how we see things." Across the room, Hank was showing a device he had built. It looked like a metal spider had crashed into a power generator. Wires stuck out at odd angles. Lights blinked in no clear pattern. "What is that supposed to do?" asked. "It coordinates energy pulses across multiple frequencies," explained. The problem was coordinating 17 different vectors at once. Their systems work in sequence. 1, then 2, then 3. But Hank built this to work in parallel. Everything fires at the same time. "That should not be possible. The interference patterns would destroy any signal." Hank grinned. "That is what the energy cells are for. They absorb interference. And the navigation computer thinks in parallel naturally, so it can handle the calculations." "You are combining technology from 4 different species." 6, actually," Danny said, walking over. "The housing is metal, very strong. The sensors are from your people, very precise. It is like a recipe, a little bit of everything." Stared at them. In her culture, mixing technologies from different species was considered improper, disrespectful even. Each system was designed for its own purpose, its own people. To combine them was to ignore all of that history and meaning. "You do not follow rules very well, do you?" she asked. Amy laughed. She had just finished another call, securing something called pizza from a human supply ship that was passing through the sector. "We follow rules when they make sense. When they do not, we find another way." "And if there is no other way?" Danny looked at her with tired but steady eyes. "Then we make one." A soft alarm chimed on his data pad. She looked at it and her expression changed. "The rift is growing faster. We do not have 30 cycles anymore. We have 15. The room went quiet. Even Hank stopped working. Danny took a slow breath. He looked at his team. They looked back at him, waiting. "Then we work faster," he said. And they did. 10 cycles remained when High Arbiter decided to visit the humans himself. He had heard strange reports. The small human team had not given up. They had not asked to be evacuated. Instead, they worked around the clock, never stopping, never resting. Some said they had built something in that cargo bay. Others said they had lost their minds. Needed to see for himself. He would thank them for their effort, tell them it was time to stop, and arrange transport to get them to safety before the end. He walked through the station corridors with 2 guards behind him. The halls were emptier now. Many delegations had already left. They had finished their evacuation that morning. The great engineers had given up, taken their people, and gone home. The station felt like a dying thing. The door to Cargo Bay 7 opened and stopped. The room had been transformed. What was once a storage space full of junk was now a workshop full of purpose. Screens covered every wall, showing data and calculations. A massive device sat in the center, built from pieces that should never have fit together. And the humans were everywhere, moving, talking, working. But they were not panicking. That was what struck most. 10 cycles until the end of everything, and they were not panicking. Danny looked up from a console and smiled. "Hi, Arbiter. Welcome. Please excuse the mess." "The mess is the least concerning thing here," said slowly. He walked closer to the central device. It hummed with power. Lights blinked in complex patterns. "What have you built?" "We call it the bridge," said. She was adjusting something on its surface with careful hands. "Because it connects things that were not connected before." "Does it work?" "We will find out soon." Turned to Danny. "I came to tell you that it is time to leave. You have done more than anyone expected. You have earned the respect of the Conclave, but this is over. The rift cannot be closed." Danny nodded. "We heard the assessment. They say our plan has a 12% chance of success." 12% is not a chance, it is a hope. Hopes have worked before. Felt frustration rise in his chest. Why do you do this? Why risk your lives for beings who laughed at you, species who called you primitive and small? Danny thought about the question. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. "On our world there is a story. A long time ago, a great ship was sinking in cold water. There were not enough boats for everyone. Some people gave up and waited to die, but others kept working until the very last moment, trying to save just one more life. They did not succeed in saving everyone, but they saved many, and the ones who survived remembered them as heroes." He looked at with tired eyes. "We do not fight impossible battles because we know we will win. We fight them because they need to be fought, because giving up is not who we are." Before could respond, Amy walked over carrying a flat box. "The pizza arrived. Would you like some? High Arbiter. It is food from our world." Stared at her. "You ordered food now, at a time like this." "People need to eat," Amy said simply. "And it helps to have something good when times are hard." She opened the box. Inside was a round, flat bread covered in red sauce and melted cheese. The smell was strange but not unpleasant. Watched as the humans gathered around, each taking a piece, eating with their hands while they continued to work. Sam was eating with one hand and pointing at a screen with the other. "The rhythm is strongest at cycle 7.3. If we fire then, we catch the rift at its weakest pulse." "That gives us a firing window of about 4 seconds, said between bites. "Not a lot of room for error." "Then we do not make errors," Hank said. He wiped sauce from his fingers and went back to adjusting wires. The door to the cargo bay opened again. Commander walked in, his expression hard and cold. He had not left with the other. He had stayed to watch the station fall, to record what he called a lesson in humility. "High Arbiter," said with a small bow. Then he turned to Danny. "I have reviewed your plan, your device, your calculations, all of it." "And?" Danny asked calmly. "And it is reckless, foolish. You are combining systems that were never meant to work together. You are using biological data to solve a physics problem. You are relying on timing so precise that even our best computers struggle with it." "That is true." Stepped closer. "If you fire that device and fail, the energy feedback could accelerate the rift. You could make things worse. You could kill everyone still on this station weeks earlier than necessary." "Also true." The commander stared at Danny with what might have been anger or might have been confusion. "Then why proceed? Why take that risk?" Answered for him. "Because doing nothing is not an option. Waiting to die is not a plan." "My people have been building starships for 6,000 years, said. "We have learned that some battles cannot be won. That wisdom means knowing when to walk away." Danny nodded slowly. "We are only 100 years into space travel. Maybe we have not learned that lesson yet, or maybe we never will. Humans are stubborn that way." He held out the pizza box. "Would you like some food, Commander? It is pretty good." looked at the box like it might bite him. Then slowly, he reached out and took a piece. He bit into it carefully, chewed, and his face showed an expression the humans could not quite read. "This is acceptable," he said finally. Amy smiled. "That is high praise." Outside the cargo bay windows, the rift continued to spin, purple and black, hungry and growing. But inside, the humans kept working, kept eating, kept talking. And somewhere in his old heart, felt something he had not felt in a long time. It might have been hope. 5 cycles remained. The device was ready. The plan was set, and was about to fly straight toward the rift. She sat in the pilot seat of a small shuttle, running through her checklist one more time. The shuttle had been modified by Hank until it barely looked like the same ship. New sensors covered its hull. Extra shielding protected the cockpit. A rack of signal beacons filled the cargo area behind her. Danny's voice came through her earpiece. "Status report. All systems green. Well, mostly green. A few are yellow. One might be orange." "Is orange bad?" "Ask me when I get back." She powered up the engines. The shuttle lifted from the cargo bay floor and moved toward the exit doors. Through her window, she could see the rift clearly now. It was massive, bigger than the station itself, spinning slowly like a drain in the fabric of space. "Remember the plan," Danny said. "Deploy the beacons at the marked coordinates. They will guide the bridge's energy pulse to the right spots. You have to place all 6 of them within the firing window." 4 seconds, 6 beacons, no problem. "I know, Danny, be careful." She pushed the throttle forward. The shuttle shot out of the station and into open space. Back in the cargo bay, the rest of the team watched her progress on the screens. Sam monitored the rift's rhythm, counting down to the optimal firing moment. Hank stood ready at the bridge's controls, his big hands steady despite everything. Amy kept communication channels open to the remaining station crew, updating them on the situation. High Arbiter had not left. He stood in the corner of the room, watching the humans work. Commander stood beside him, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Scholar had returned as well, unable to stay away. "She is approaching the outer edge," Sam reported. "Radiation levels increasing, shield holding for now." On the screen, shuttle grew smaller as it flew toward the spinning darkness. The rift pulled at her ship, gravity waves trying to drag her in. She fought them with small adjustments, her hands dancing across the controls. "First beacon away," reported, "moving to position 2. "Good copy," Danny replied. "Clock starts in 40 seconds. Drop the second beacon, then the third." She was flying faster now, pushing the shuttle harder than it was designed to go. The rift seemed to sense her presence. Its rotation shifted slightly, reaching for her like a hungry mouth. "Fourth beacon away. Minor damage to port shield." "Can you continue?" "Watch me." Leaned forward. She speaks as if this is nothing. She is flying into certain death and she jokes. Shook her head slowly. "I do not understand humans at all." "Fifth beacon away," called out. "One more coming up on position 6. That was when things went wrong. A gravity spike hit the shuttle without warning. The ship tumbled, spinning wildly, alarms screaming in its ears. She fought the controls, trying to stabilize, trying to think. Danny shouted, "What happened?" "Gravity flux. I am caught in it, trying to break free." The shuttle was being pulled toward the rift. Through her spinning window, could see the blackness growing larger, closer. Her instruments were going crazy. The numbers made no sense. In the cargo bay, everyone held their breath. Sam's face was pale. Hank gripped the bridge controls so hard his knuckles turned white. Amy had stopped talking, her hand pressed against her mouth. But Danny stayed calm. He always stayed calm. "Listen to me. The flux has a pattern. Sam, find it." The 2 scientists started working instantly. Their fingers flew across keyboards. "There," said. "The flux reverses every 12 seconds. If she fires her engines at the right moment, she can use the reversal to slingshot out. Did you hear that? I heard. Her voice was strained but steady, counting down 11, 10, 9. The shuttle kept spinning. The rift kept pulling. Everyone watched and waited. 3, 2, 1, now. Fired everything she had. The shuttle screamed in protest. Metal groaned. Warnings flashed. For one terrible moment, she hung between escape and death. Then she broke free. The shuttle shot away from the gravity flux like a stone from a sling, grabbed the controls and steadied her ship. She was breathing hard, her heart pounding, but she was alive. Final beacon away, she reported. All 6 in position. Danny allowed himself 1 second of relief, then he was back to business. Come home, Hank prepared a fire. Firing window in 30 seconds, Sam announced. 29, 28. The bridge hummed louder. Lights flickered across its strange surface. Energy built up inside it, gathered from every source the humans had connected. Shuttle raced back toward the station. Behind her, the 6 beacons blinked in the darkness, forming a pattern around the rift's edge. 10 seconds, Sam counted. 9, 8, 7. Danny looked at his team. Hank was ready. Sam was focused. Amy was holding her breath. They had done everything they could. Now they would find out if it was enough. 3, 2, 1. Fire, Danny said quietly. Hank pressed the button. The bridge released its energy in one massive pulse. It traveled out from the station, split into 17 different beams by the navigation computer, guided by the beacons, timed perfectly to the rift's heartbeat. The beams hit the rift simultaneously. For one moment, nothing happened. Then everything happened. Light filled the space where the rift had been. Every screen went white. Every sensor overloaded. The station shook like a ship in a storm. And then there was silence. Complete, absolute silence. Danny stared at the white screens. Sam, report. Sam worked his controls frantically. Sensors are coming back online. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. The screens flickered. Color returned. Images formed. Where the rift had been, there was now nothing. Just empty space. Clean, clear, normal space. Sam looked up, his eyes wide. It is gone. The rift is completely gone. Great chamber of station was full again. Every seat was taken. Delegates who had fled returned. Species who had given up hope now sat in stunned silence. And at the center platform, where High Arbiter had once announced the end of everything, he now announced something very different. The rift is not just closed, said. His voice was strong now, filled with wonder. The energy feedback from the human device actually strengthened the space-time fabric in this sector. Our scientists say that another rift in this region is now nearly impossible. The humans did not just solve the problem. They made it better than before. A murmur ran through the chamber. Delegates leaned toward each other, whispering in their own languages. Some still could not believe it. Some did not want to. Scholar stood from her seat. High Arbiter, my team has analyzed the data. The bridge device achieved 340% of its projected efficiency. That should not be possible by any known physics. Then how do you explain it? Asked. Paused. She looked toward the human delegation, sitting in their corner seats. Danny was there with his team, all of them exhausted but smiling, had a bandage on her forehead from where she had hit it during the gravity flux. Sam could barely keep his eyes open. Hank was already sketching new designs on a data pad. Amy was waving at friends she had made across the chamber. I cannot fully explain it, admitted, but I have a theory. Humans think differently than we do. They combine things we keep separate. They trust feelings that we ignore. Their machine was not just technology. It was creativity. It was hope. It was 5 beings who refused to accept that anything was impossible. Commander stood next. His face was hard to read, but there was something different in his eyes, something that might have been respect. I owe the humans an apology, he said. The words seemed difficult for him. His people were proud. They did not apologize often. I called them primitive. I laughed at their offer to help. I told them they did not understand what they were facing. He turned to look directly at Danny. I was wrong. They understood better than any of us. They understood that trying matters more than succeeding, that refusing to give up is its own form of strength. Danny stood slowly. Everyone in the chamber looked at him. He was not impressive to look at, short for a human, messy hair, simple clothes, but when he spoke, his voice carried. "We did not do this alone," he said. "They gave us power cells. They gave us a computer. They gave us sensors. Scholar helped us understand the rhythm of the rift. Commander stayed when his people left, and I think that gave us courage." He looked around the room. The conclave is not just a collection of separate species. It can be a family, different pieces that work together, like our machine, like us. The chamber was silent. Then slowly one delegate began to tap their hand against their seat. It was an old signal used by many species. It meant approval, agreement, respect. More joined, then more. Soon the entire chamber was filled with the sound of hands tapping, claws clicking, tentacles slapping against seats. It was not cheering, it was something deeper. Raised his hands for silence. When it came, he spoke with great care. 2 years ago, we welcomed humanity into the conclave as observers. We thought they were too young, too small, too weak to be true members. We were patient with them, the way adults are patient with children. He paused. "We were fools." Another murmur but continued. "I now propose that humanity be granted full membership in the conclave, not as observers, not as junior partners, as equals with all the rights and responsibilities that come with that status." "I second the proposal," said immediately. Third added. The vote was quick. Not a single species opposed it. After the formal session ended, found Danny standing by a window. The space where the rift had been was empty now. Stars shone through it like they always had, like nothing had ever been wrong. "Can I ask you something?" said. Danny nodded. "Of course." "When you stood up in that first meeting and said you could help, did you really believe it? Did you truly think 5 humans with salvage and scraps could close a spatial rift that our greatest engineers could not?" Danny was quiet for a moment. He watched the stars. "No," he said finally. "I did not believe we could do it, not at first." "Then why did you offer?" "Because someone had to try. Because the problem existed and walking away from it felt wrong. Because my team looked at me and I saw in their eyes that they were willing to try, even if it was hopeless." He turned to look at. "On Earth, we have a saying. It is not about whether you win or lose. It is about how you play the game. We chose to play. We chose to try. That was all we could control. And you succeeded." Danny smiled. "We got lucky. We worked hard, we stayed together, and we got lucky. That is usually how it works for humans. Consider this. You are a strange species." "Yes, we are." Across the observation deck, the human team was gathering, was laughing at something Hank said. Sam was finally sleeping, his head resting on a table. Amy was talking to 3 different alien delegates at once, somehow keeping all the conversations going. "Your team needs rest," said. "They need pizza," Danny replied, "and then rest in that order." He started to walk toward his friends, then stopped. He looked back at. "Thank you for watching us work, for not giving up on us even when it seemed crazy. I did not help that much. You helped more than you know, just by being there, just by caring." He walked away to join his team, watched them gather together, talking and laughing, exhausted and happy. She still did not fully understand humans. She was not sure anyone ever would, but she was beginning to think that understanding them was not the point. The point was that, when everyone else had said it could not be done, 5 humans had calmly said they could do it. And then they had surpassed every expectation.